When you travel and you want to record talking head videos, you're quite limited with your lighting, so your shots will look somewhat like that, pretty flat and not professional. So in this video I have a few tricks for you and a new product that make your videos look like that. A lot better, right? Let's start with the basics. The most important light that is usually missing when you travel is your key light. This is the main light that shines on your face and therefore puts emphasis on it. You ideally want this light to be big and close to your face because that gives you a soft and nice look. When I'm at home, I use a 90cm softbox for that, so I can just sit down and be sure that it looks good. There are also a few other lights that I use at my home studio, which is at first a reflector that acts as a fill light and practical lights that make the background look nicer and create a nice rim light effect around my body to separate myself from the background. But now I'm traveling for a few months and I want to travel light, so I have to use different light sources to make it look good. And the first option, of course, is to use window light. Using window light can be a good technique, especially for quick vlogs where you don't want to spend too much time talking in one position, because the big disadvantage of window light is that the light changes all the time, both in terms of exposure and temperature. Important when you use window light though is that you use it like a key light in a studio, so instead of just sitting statically in front of it like I'm doing now, which also looks kind of flat, you want to change the camera angle a little bit so that you generate a bit more depth. So for example, when I record like that, then you see that it throws a bit more shadow over my face, and that gives it a much nicer look because shadows create depth, and this is what lighting is for. Or to do it a bit more extreme, I could also go for a look like that here, what gives even more shadow, but I still have that Rembrandt light here, so now I have to position the camera on the sofa to make that look happen. What you can also see here is that I use pillows here, because at first that helps me a bit with the audio, then it reflects less from the glass, but it also makes the light a bit more directional, so I get darker shadows on the dark side of my face, and I like that. Like if I would not use these pillows, the side of my face would be a bit brighter and yeah, like a bit more dramatic look. So definitely play a bit around with the camera angle when you shoot in front of a window, but that counts for every light actually. Just in a window you're more torn to like just doing that, but that's not necessarily the best look. And what you should also do is to be aware of your background. Like right now I could use that here if I want to have guitars in the background, but if you have a smaller room, for example, you might want to choose a completely different angle. Could record an angle like that then, so you have a bit more space behind you, what gives you more background blur, because the farther objects are away, the more blurry they get. And also this position I actually like that really much because the light, now the practical light, gives a nicer rim light effect here. So also look for stuff like that. Use the lights that you have available in your room to create certain effects and make the background look even more interesting. So before I've been in a room with super big windows, so that was quite easy to get some good looks out of it by adjusting my camera angle. But now it's the complete opposite. As you can see, there's only this super small roof window here and nothing else. There's also the bed standing here, so I can't even sit or do anything, and that really limits me to this angle. It's not like super bad, you could still do that, especially in a vlog. It's probably better than sitting inside of the room completely now. But I also don't have any flexibility here. This is really the only shot that you can get. Maybe I can move a little bit around, but it's not that it really changes that much. So this is a good example where it can get limiting using window light when you travel, and sometimes you don't have another option. You can't always choose a hotel room with a super big window. Sometimes you are limited to a room like that. And that leads me to the product that I want to share with you today, which is this light here, the Zhiyun FIVERAY FR100C. Yes, they could use another name for that, but this light is great because it's quite travel friendly. As you can see, it's not like super small, but small enough to travel with it, and it only weighs 920 grams. And as you can see, it helps me to quickly set up something like that here. I just use the boxes here to put the light on because I only travel with one tripod. It's like a bit hard to travel with two, to be honest. And what I also did to create this look together with the FIVERAY light was to use the window light here as a the rim light. I always want to have this backlight effect, and I also have the ceiling light on here because that gives a nice hair light, what also separates me a bit more from the background. You always want to create depth when you're lighting your shot. The ceiling light is usually not recommended to use that because it can easily change your white balance. Like here I have it set to 5600 Kelvin now on the Xeon or FIVERAY light, but when the light gets mixed with the ceiling light, then it can easily mess up your skin tones, and that is why I use a gray card here to white balance my shot so that my skin tones are accurate straight out of camera. If you have a 10-bit camera, you can also oftentimes fix that in post, but it's not ideal. Better do it in camera correctly. Now you need to imagine that most of the time over the years I used a 60 watt light in my YouTube studio, and I usually used it only at about 8 to 20% depending on my setup, like brightness. And now this light here is 100 watts. Like that's insane. I use it at 18% right now because I don't want the shadow on my face to be too harsh. Like you always have to play a bit around with the settings to generate the look that you're going for, but that is crazy. And this light comes with a USB-C charging, so I don't have to carry around an additional adapter like on other lights. You probably know how big these adapters can get. If you want to get a charger though, you can get one, which makes sense for more stationary setups, because if you use this light at 100%, like 100 watt brightness, then it only lasts for 31 minutes, which might sound a bit low right now, but usually it's enough because in environments where you need that harsh of a light, you likely don't film that long. But on the opposite side, if you only use it at 10% or 10 watts, it lasts you 5 hours and 40 minutes. Now you might ask yourself why you even need this 100 watts if you don't even need that in your YouTube studio. I would actually say that when you're traveling, this 100 watts are even more important because outside you need to compensate for light sources that are out of your control, such as the sun. In a few minutes I will show you one setup where that actually helps a lot, and I was quite surprised how much better it makes it when I used this light a few days ago. And aside from that, this light also comes with a 1/4" screw at the bottom, which is great, so you can connect it to every tripod you want on the go. And it also has a CRI index of 96 and a TLCI index of 97, what is supposed to mean that the light is pretty accurate that you get there, so your skin tones look good. And you don't only have to use it on a tripod, you can also just grab this light and shoot completely on the go, especially if you have a partner with you or so. I think for certain shots or certain effects that can also make a lot of sense. And talking about effects, it also comes with several modes. Let me just have a quick look here. So you can turn the HSI mode on, and then as you can see, you have blue light. Where's red? Now we have green, yellow, red, purple. My girlfriend would love that. Teal, if you want to use it for your background. If you want some other colors and not just use this light for your face, then you can do that as well. But there are like two things I would say that are missing. At first, there are no actual effects. There's only the HSI that you can change the color of the light, but there are no like Lightworks effects or an emergency light or stuff like that as you get with other lights. That would be nice to have. Oh. Okay, nothing bad happened. Let's come back to the light. As mentioned, no effects are available, only the HSI, and there's also no app control in case you want to control the light while it's a bit farther away. It's a little bit of a downer, not a deal breaker for me. And the price starts at 199 US dollars, but you can also get a combo package where you get some extras that you may need or may not, which is $249. So considering what you get there, that makes it actually a quite affordable light, because you can also use it in your YouTube studio. As you can see, it looks perfectly fine, especially if you use it together with a reflector or a softbox in front or so. But now let me also show you a few more setups that you can achieve with this light, so you get some ideas what you can do with it while you're traveling. And that is actually the first setup that I wanted to show you here. You can do that in every hotel room. Just use the FIVERAY light as your key light, bring it close to your face so that it's a bit softer, because the farther away it is, the less you notice the light and the harsher it gets. Like, you want to make it a big light source, so bring it close and sit in a corner of a room so that the background is a bit farther away, then you get more blur that looks better. Use some pillows or blankets in the corner to get better audio, and then play a bit around with the light in the background. Like now I use this light here, the bed light, As a practical light to make the background look a little bit nicer, I use the window light here for the rim light effect and the ceiling light for a hair light. But depending on the room that you're in, you might want to use different lights, or maybe you don't want to use certain lights as well because it makes it look good. But let's now go down to the next setup. And that is the second setup that I want to show you with this light. It's definitely the most complicated to set up. As you can see, we got a bigger room now. You can probably hear it. There's a bit more room tone as far as I can notice. And I use a FIVERAY light here again as my key light, but I also need a fill light here because otherwise the shadow side of my face would be way too dark. That didn't look good anymore, which is why I use the towels here over the TV to reflect the light from the FIVERAY back on the other side of my face. It's not perfect, definitely having an actual reflector would make it look a bit better, but when you travel you have to improvise with stuff like that. And as you can see, I also turned the room light on again. I had it turned off before, but it didn't really look good, so I kept it on. It's definitely not perfect because my head touches the light. It looks a little bit weird, but I can't change it in this setup. That's again the issues that you have to deal with when you travel. You oftentimes can't change it, but I would say we got the best out of it here. Could also film from the other corner, but that was even more complicated to set everything up there, so I just left it and did it here. I think both angles would look really nice overall, but that was just a bit easier. Let me show you the third setup, which is actually a lot easier than before. Now I'm sitting on a terrace here, so I have shadow above me, light coming from the back. And if I would not use the FR100C here at 100% or 100 watt brightness, it would look like that. Of course, I would be a bit, or expose a bit brighter than something like that. But you can tell it looks really flat. So when I turn the light back around, I expose for my face. That looks so much better. Now you can really see how much my face pops from the background. And this is really where the 100 watts of this light come into play. Without these 100 watts, it would be really hard to compensate for the backlight. So that is actually a use case when you're outside where this light helps you a lot. And I actually used this setup in my last video about the Viltrox 13mm f1.4 lens, which I'm also using again now. And I was super surprised how much this light added to the shot, because I'm already sitting in front of a white wall, but it's still that flat and it looks so much better with that light. I would say it's a look that you actually don't often see on YouTube, because when people are outside, they usually don't use a light at all, so it nearly looks like a green screen in some of those shots, and I really love that. And that's our fourth and last setup. And right now I'm not sitting in the shade at all. It's just cloudy over me, but I get direct light here. And still this light makes a hell of a difference at 100 watts. So when I turn it around, you see it's getting quite dark. I don't really pop from the background anymore. Definitely not good. When I bring it back, you can instantly see how much of a difference that makes. Like now my skin actually looks good and it pops from the background. That's the look that you're going for. So if you're interested in this light, I will leave a link in the description below. And if you want to learn more about how to make your videos look more cinematic, check out these two videos here in the corner. There I teach you more. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. See ya.